Howdy.
Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome.
Hello.
Hello. I'm just letting a few more people in. The author is here, but I did tell her I wouldn't let her in right away.
Huh.
Let us get through this awkward joining part first, and then we'll bring her in.
Mhm.
You guys are all looking fabulous tonight. How's it going?
Going well.
Good, 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 good. Michelle, glad to see you made it.
I did. A miracle.
Yay. Such a nice book backdrop there.
It's real books. Not mine. Those are Jeeps, but
Okay. See if there's any more people coming here.
Marcia has cute gnomes in her back.
Yeah.
Oh, she does. Cute.
In Scott's family, those are called Tantagoobens. I have no idea if that's a word or if that's just something his family calls them.
Tantagoobens?
Impressed that you can remember it.
Are they?
Yeah,
Not an easy word.
What are they?
the little Tantagoobens.
Oh, those are cool.
Yeah. Is Todd joining us tonight?
And guess what? I finally caught up to you guys. I finally have read all the books, believe it or not, with every other book club that I'm in. So I'll try to contribute tonight for a change rather than wander around. So,
No kibitzing.
right.
Well, except we're going to turn ourselves off here pretty soon because we're just now eating dinner. We got a little bit waylaid today, so.
We've had 3 Zoom meetings and I am zoomed out, actually.
I had a 3.5 hours of Zoom meeting.
Oh, gosh. I understand. I started my day with one too, and then worked all day, and here we are. But
Here we are.
this will be
And
fun.
Allie must have
everybody.
had her grandson there because it says her name is James the Meme Craft.
He wasn't here this time, so I'm not sure how it got changed. And like, I was on one family one and it was changed. I was on another one for an organization and it was my name, and now I'm back to that. But James is my grandson, yes.
And he's the meme craft god. Okay.
He loves Minecraft and playing that. So he probably named himself that.
That's cute.
Well, before we officially get started, who has questions they would like to ask the author? So I make sure I call on you. Not that, I mean, it's going to be very informal as we usually are. So if questions come up, please feel free. But anybody that knows they do have questions, so I know that to call on some people. Sue and Jane.
Have anything?
No, I just had a couple places, I think.
All right. I have a couple and I'll get us started, but hopefully some will come to you as we're discussing. So I think we're looking ready. Everybody's in. I'm gonna welcome the author in and we'll jump right in and get started. Thank you all for coming. Let's have fun. Joining, here she comes.
She's there. There she is. Yeah.
Hello.
Kathleen, can you hear us?
Hello.
today?
Hi.
Hi, thank you for joining us. Everybody, please help me to welcome Kathleen Ernst.
Hello, hello.
Delighted to join you this evening.
Now, we read The Lightkeeper's Legacy, which is actually the 3rd book in the Chloe Ellison mystery series, which now numbers 10. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was at her website.
Yes, and you've also written quite a few young adult, or your younger reader books, a lot for the American Girl series, which is fun. And I noticed we had another one in the library, one of your nonfiction collection.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Settler's Year. This is set at Old World, Wisconsin.
That is one of my favorite books. So
This is fantastic. If anybody wants to check this out. So thank you so much for joining us. We are pleased to have you. I know some people have some questions, but I'll jump in and ask kind of an obvious one. What prompted you to write or to set this particular novel on Rock Island?
Well, when I'm considering locations for Chloe, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. When I'm considering locations for Chloe Ellison books, I have several criteria. One is that I love the site and want to live there in my mind for a year and share it with readers. But I also have to consider what I call mystery geography, which means that I need a place where I can plot a mystery story and get readers, get my main characters in trouble. So often someone might suggest a one-room log cabin that has a great story, but there's not a whole lot I can do with that. And the first time that I visited Rock Island and the lighthouse, all I could think was, this is perfect. This fabulous story here, this incredible structure, and a remote island without road access. That's about as good as it gets for a mystery plot. But most of all, I just love the site. I love the island. I love the lighthouse. I love the history, the stories there. After my husband and I visited one time, we knew we wanted to go back as docents. And I believe during our first stint as docents, I said, I have to get Chloe here.
So your first visit, you had already started writing the series then?
I believe I had. It was about that time. And I'm usually planning Chloe books, a couple books in advance. And so I was probably on book 1 or 2 when I just happened to visit the first time, and I just knew it was a place that I wanted to return to. And I think in broad terms, there's a fascination about lighthouses. So obviously, I want to write about places that appeal to readers as well.
Well, we know a lot about the fascination of lighthouses around
Yeah,
here.
you more than I for sure.
How many of you have been to Rock Island? Half-ish, maybe?
4, 5.
I've been there quite a few times, so it was interesting to be able to picture what is happening there, but also interesting to think about the communities that lived there.
That were there once and gone.
Mhm.
Yeah. The fishing village, I mean, I was first attracted to the lighthouse. That's where I toured and where I ended up working as a docent. But the fishing village, which is today just a peaceful meadow and a peaceful beach, but to start imagining the families that were there, the struggles they had, the rough life that they had as fisher people on a big lake, just layers and layers and layers of stories and history there that aren't visible to the human eye like the lighthouse is.
True. Go ahead, Anne.
Kathleen, have you come across the recent book written by Tom Davis, who was a Door County writer, but he has researched about African Americans that ended up there on Washington Island. Again, historical fiction based on a lot of his research. And it's fascinating to think not only of those early fishermen, but also that African Americans found up here kind of trying to find some safety and then not particularly finding it. But
thank you for mentioning that. I saw a notice of it, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet. It is definitely on my list. And I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it.
Jane, I think you had a question as well. Did you want to?
Sure. This is just a question about maybe writing. I just wonder how you will know that perhaps Chloe's story has come to an end. And it's not a suggestion, not a suggestion, but I just wonder, you as a writer, if you have a feel for that, if you have an arc ahead of time of the story, so you know where it's headed, or
are you talking about an individual book or the whole series?
The whole series. When will you decide that Chloe's time has come to an end?
And I think that's a really good question, because sometimes I think readers of writers with a popular series, especially big name people, are under a certain amount of pressure to keep going when maybe they're ready to move on. I can assure you at this moment, I'm not ready to move on. And I had a really good opportunity to reflect on Chloe and the series and my goals, and to think about, could I keep the series fresh? Because as some of you may know, if you follow my newsletter or anything like that, the publisher of the first 10 books is no longer publishing mysteries. So it kind of forced me to think about, where am I? Is this a good time to stop? And if you've read all 10, I'm not going to go into that, but the 10th book ends on a note that I think most readers would have been happy, content with that as an ending to the series. But two things happened. One was, as I thought more about it, I just really did not feel ready to say goodbye to Chloe and Relke, the two main characters. I think it's a little easier for me to keep this series fresh than some mystery authors have, simply because I feature different locations and different topics in every book. So every time I start a new book, it's like, woohoo, a new adventure, and I get to learn something totally new and go to a new site. And then the other factor was that I had many kind readers who got in touch with me at the time and said, please don't, yeah, we're 10 ended is fine, but please keep going. So I'm happy to say that the 11th book is coming out in the spring, and I have no plans to stop the series. I'm just going to keep it going indefinitely and see how things evolve. As long as it feels fresh to me, then I hope it will feel fresh to readers as well.
Can we ask where the 11th one is set?
I haven't talked about the literal setting yet, but it does feature Finnish American heritage.
Ooh.
So that's a new group for me, and another I think, incredibly fascinating story of the group and the history and what they encountered. They were much later immigrants than many of the immigrants groups that I've looked at so far, arriving well into the 1900s, but still had all the challenges and rugged experiences that most new immigrant groups face. So I'm excited about that one. Between the publisher change and the pandemic, there's been a delay. So I'm really thrilled that we're getting very close, and that'll be out in the spring.
That's good to hear. Very good to hear. I was wondering, knowing that you had worked at Old World, Wisconsin, how much of Chloe is based on you and your experiences, or at least maybe in the beginning, possibly?
Yeah. Chloe is a lot like me, but she is a fictional character. A lot of superficial things are alike. I mean, certainly she has the same job that I had. I actually had Byron's job, the interpreter curator, as well as collections when I was there. But it's separate now, and I chose to keep it separate. She lived in the house originally that I lived in when I was working at Old World, Wisconsin. She drives the old ratty Ford Pinto that I drove for years. So things like that, I can just pull from memory. But because I'm writing fiction, Chloe needed to be a fully developed character that would work for the stories, not just echo my own experiences there. So I did create her as a fictional person, and I tried to make a few changes in her story. For example, I am not a Wisconsin native, so I made sure that she was. I have no Norwegian heritage, which she is fully Norwegian heritage, Norwegian American. And those are small things, but I did that to try to help give some space between me and Chloe, so she doesn't seem totally like I'm writing a biography.
Now, for this one, how many times have you been to Rock Island now? And can you tell us a little bit about your docent experience up there?
The docent experience was amazing. We did that, my husband and I did that for 8 years.
Wow.
And each year we went up actually for 9 days at a time. And for those of you that haven't been on the island, of course, you have to take a ferry to get there, but the campground is at one end and the lighthouse is at the other end. So when you're at the lighthouse and the campers are pretty much in their campground and the day visitors have left for the day, you feel pretty rugged, pretty alone. And for somebody with an imagination like mine, that was just a prime ground for working on that. Living in the lighthouse for 9 days is an incredible privilege. It's beautifully restored. My husband and I chose to sleep in the assistant keeper's bedroom, which is overlooking the passage, and we could hear the barges going by and the ships in the night. And just to walk the floors and think about every time I took a tour group up and down the stairs to the lantern room, I would think about all the keepers and all the situations and the cold, dark nights when they went up and down the stairs all night long. It was really a humbling experience in that regard, especially since some of them, including Emily Betts, which I talked about in the book a little bit, had a particularly hard time. She was often pregnant. She was a woman and she was carrying hot lard up and down the stairs to keep the fuel going, which is very admirable. And then during the day, visitors come and we gave tours of the lighthouse. And I was an interpreter at Old World for years. I mean, even after I became a curator and sort of went behind the scenes for most of my career there, I still got out on the site. And I love sharing these incredible stories with people and hearing their stories about their own families or their experiences on Rock Island. So it was really just a joyful thing to do. I wrote quite a bit of the book there, actually, sitting on the picnic table out front at quiet times 1 year and working. And then the second year I went back with the manuscript in total and I had to proofread it, that the timing coincided. So I sat in the parlor. It was cold that year. So I sat in the parlor, which is the only place where there's a heating source, and was proofreading the Lightkeeper's Legacy where they had walked. So very, very special.
Is there still a waiting list to do that? I believe I remember there being a couple waiting list.
Yeah, last I knew there was. We have not done it now for several years. We did it. We loved every minute, and then it was time to move on. But last I knew there was a list, and it's a little competitive. The fact that I had museum experience and docent experience, I'm sure helped it in our favor. And my husband had been a reenactor and an educator as well in that way. But by all means, if you're interested, throw your hat in the ring, because it's there's nothing like it. I've been hanging around the history world for a long time and had some wonderful experiences many places, but getting to stay in the lighthouse on hot days and cold nights and stormy days and just sort of feeling the island in that way was very special.
My husband and I were out there when they were restoring the tower.
Oh.
And we brought back the chip paint from the walls because it was lead-based and it had to be brought back and disposed of properly.
Sure.
I ran a shop and they always asked us to be docents the first year or so, but I could never be gone.
Yeah.
For a week to do that.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place, just beautiful.
It's and the way I mean, it's still remote, which I realize is challenging. It's about a mile walk from the boat landing through the woods. But once you get there, you're in the woods and then you come to that rise. And those of you who have been there, I know you remember this moment where all of a sudden the clearing opens up ahead of you and you can see the water and the lighthouse. It's a treasure. It's a treasure. And I'm so glad it's in a state park.
Did you experience many snakes?
Many.
Yes, there are a lot of snakes out there.
A lot of snakes on the island. Yeah. Nowhere for them to go, I guess. So.
Have you been to Eagle Bluff Lighthouse in Peninsula State Park?
I have. It's been a little while, but I did take a tour there, and I've toured Cana. Am I pronouncing that right? Yeah, Cana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I have not visited all of them on the peninsula. More to go.
I don't know if you've been to the ridges, to the range lights, but those are also very awesome.
Well, I've been to the ridges. I haven't visited the range lights though. It's been quite a while, so I just remember taking a brief walk. I'll have to look for that next time I go up. come up.
Thank you.
So without giving us any spoilers, of course, can you tell us what happens to Chloe or how she grows in the series that is now 10 books?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, how many of you have read more than the Lightkeeper's Legacy? Oh, good. You all, a lot of you have reading ahead of you if you'd like. I did make a conscious decision at the beginning, some about what in terms of growing and changing. I did want Chloe to grow and change within each book, and there is a trajectory to the story. When we meet Chloe, she's coming out of a bad romance, has been struggling with depression. She's starting a new job, and so there's all kinds of turmoil and upheaval. And over the course of the series, I think we see Chloe grow into her own, and that's been fun for me as Chloe's alter ego, sort of. And then there's also a growing relationship between Chloe and a police officer named Relke. You know Relke if you've read the book now. They meet in the first book, and their relationship grows and changes in each book as well. I try to plan books, as I mentioned, a little bit ahead, 2 or 3 years or 2 or 3 books, so that I can kind of get Chloe, think about the path that I want Chloe to take, what I want her to learn in each book, and what historic site is a good match to where Chloe and Relke are. I mean, this book, Lightkeeper's Legacy, really was a test for both of them. Relke at the beginning wasn't keen on Chloe going off by himself. That wasn't his idea of a safe thing for a young woman to do. And obviously Chloe does anyway. And so they're having to work out. And this is a recurring theme in the series, but they're having to work out what it means to be friends with someone who in Relke's view, puts herself in danger or risks danger, I guess. And can he live with that? And what does he want to do about it? And how protective should he be? And as the two of them grow closer over the course of the 10-book series so far, I mean, that's something that he wrestles with and has to come to terms with. And in the 11th book that's not out yet, they sort of reach a new understanding about themselves as individuals, but also, at one point Relke says, I want to be supportive, and I also worry about you when you're off doing these things, and I don't know how to be supportive without swooping in, as he did in this book, to try to save the day. So I want them to be at a different point at the end of every book, and the series will just continue to have them grow. They had a major development in their relationship in book 10, and it was fun in book 11 to explore what that meant to them and how is that going to change their life and their relationship and things like that.
I've heard of authors saying that their characters sometimes take on a life of their own and kind of almost write themselves. Has anything about Chloe surprised you that you didn't expect?
That's a very interesting question. I'm not sure that she has surprised me. I root for her a lot because she was in such a difficult spot when the series began. And I cheer for her every time she stands up to her micromanaging boss or grows a little stronger emotionally. So that's been fun to see. But I don't think she's taken me in any unexpected directions. A lot of things, though, I'm very organic. I have an idea when I sit down, but I don't outline, and I just sort of allow the story to take shape. And if it goes in a slightly different direction than I vaguely imagined when I started writing the first paragraph, that's fine. Some writers can't work that way. They need to know exactly what's going to happen in every scene and every chapter. which is also fine if that's what works for them. But for me, I just kind of wade into the story and see what happens. And I look for connections, ways to reflect. A lot of the stories have the same kind of structure that The Lightkeepers has, with a historical plot line as well as Chloe's timeline. And I look for ways for what's happening in the past to reflect something that's going on in Chloe and Rilke's life. And that factors sometimes into my settings. I wrote a book, I think it's number 4. It's actually the book that comes after this, I guess, that Chloe visits all of the Laura Ingalls Wilder home sites. And I'm a big Laura fan from childhood, or Little House fan, I should say, from childhood. So I always knew I wanted to do a Little House inspired book. But I decided to wait until where Chloe was in her life would reflect what was going on in the Ingalls family's life. And if you think about the Ingalls family as depicted in the books, sort of a constant is they're trying to figure out where their home is. What is home to this family? What do you do when one partner wants to keep moving and one partner wants to settle down and stay where they are? And by the time we get to that book in the Chloe series, those are questions that Chloe and Rilke are asking as well, some of the same questions. So I look for opportunities to link the stories that way. Yes.
I'm sorry to say, I have not studied about the locations where Chloe has been in all of your 11 or 12 books, but I wondered if it sounds like a lot of them are in historical type of places. And I wondered if you had read Nevada Bar books, which are always in national parks and mysteries in national parks.
Nevada Bar was actually one of my inspirations. She's gone a little dark for my taste, to be honest, but the early books in her National Park series I devoured, and I thought she was brilliant. Her premise was brilliant. Anna goes to a different national park in every book. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. It keeps it fresh. It's always interesting, and there's always new things to be learning about these different places. So if I ever meet, I heard her speak once, but if I ever meet her, I will thank her for trailblazing in that.
So are a lot of yours in historical areas?
They all are. And
okay.
One of my goals for this series, I was very, there were certain things I wanted to accomplish and not just tell I hope a good story. When I left the Historical Society, I worked for them for 12 years and I really missed it. And we have such special places, both run by the State Historical Society, but also other, county places and museums and things. And so one of my goals was to introduce readers to some of these special places that perhaps they'd never had a chance to visit. One thing I had not considered, which has been very rewarding, I was all about sharing the good news of our historic sites. And I love hearing from people who I didn't introduce it to them because it's a place they know very well, just like I know many of you could picture where the Lightkeepers' legacy was happening. And people are so pleased to see me celebrating one of their places. I've done 2 books that are largely set at Old World, but for the most, Old World, Wisconsin, but for the most part, Chloe is off on an adventure somewhere, doing a consulting job or visiting another historic site or museum. And so each book is set in a new place.
Great, thank you.
Then have you gone to every place that your book is set at?
I absolutely have. I spend a lot of time wherever the book is set. Place is very important to me as a reader. I like books that have a strong sense of place. Long ago, I was actually an environmental education major as an undergraduate. So and as a writer, I want to bring a setting alive. And the only way I can do that is to spend time on site and not just see it, but smell it and hear it and watch what happens there. I also always talk with site staff before I start and explain what I have in mind. And now that I have 10 books in the series, that's not as difficult as it was at the very beginning, but partly just so there aren't any surprises and everyone knows that the book is in the works. Partly because I rely on them so much. Everyone has been very, very gracious, not just helping me, making sure I don't get errors in the book, but I like to start by saying, I love your site as a visitor, but tell me what you think is important. What stories aren't widely told? What do you think most of your guests may not know that you would like them to know about this site? And ideally it works as a collaboration that way.
Your book from last year actually goes to Norway. And I
Yes.
see on your website you have a tour planned.
I do have a tour planned. Chloe, as I mentioned, and I assume it's mentioned in the book, even though it's not a big feature, it's of Norwegian descent. And I decided that book 10 was time after Chloe celebrating and investigating other people's stories and family stories and other books. It was time for her to do some exploring about her own family history. And that took her back to Norway. So I was fortunate enough to go twice because I wanted to spend as much time as I could. There's one museum in particular that's featured in the 10th Chloe book, which is Fiddling with Fate. And the museum director there was incredibly generous with her time and her knowledge. And part of my time is spent researching or talking to the experts. And then part of my time is just spent wandering the grounds or sitting there and thinking. And it was a great privilege that I was able to do that. And then about a year ago, I was approached by the Mount Horeb Historical Society, and they asked if I would be willing to lead a trip to Norway, primarily based on the Chloe book. It's not rigidly adhering to that, but we're going to be following the same tour that Chloe took in the book. So it's very, very, very exciting. It was postponed a year, but it's definitely a go. And while I think of it, if any of you would like to keep in touch, I mean, I am online on Facebook and things, but you're also welcome on my website, which is KathleenErnst.com. There's a simple sign up form if you'd like to get my newsletter, which comes out once a month if I'm not too crazy busy, and more sporadically if I am. But it's a nice way to keep in touch and stay up on all the news. I think there was, yes, another hand here.
Go ahead, Chair.
I'm pointing to the screen like you can see who I'm pointing at. Sorry.
Well, I'm wondering if this is something that you do in each one of your books where the two different characters somehow think exactly alike, only they're, years apart. So for example, on page 59, Chloe says, "A million stars glittered in the sky. The silhouettes of trees showed black against the paler midnight tones of the lake and sky." And then on page 62, Emily says exactly the same thing. Is that something you try to do in each book, or is that just something that worked out in this particular book where two characters are thinking exactly the same thing years apart?
I try to look for ways to link the two plot lines. And sometimes it can be literal. Both characters had that exact experience of looking at the night sky. And I made a conscious choice to use the same language in situations like that, just to reinforce the fact that even though they're a century apart, they're walking the same ground and having the same experience, basically.
Yeah.
And in one of the other books, I also did that with Chloe and Relke. They were in two different places. And at the ends of chapters, I tried to suggest their growing connection by having them think some similar thoughts, even though they were apart. I realized that writing two plot lines and braiding them together, I I think hard about how I can make that as smooth as possible for the readers, because it is a jump back and forth in time. That's actually the trickiest part of writing these books, is figuring out, the plot has to overall advance in one seamless story
Right.
for you, the reader. So what part is going to be advanced by Rania in this chapter, and then Chloe, and how does she pick up the story and go from there?
Right.
I have to play with that quite a bit sometimes.
Yeah. What can you tell us about Chloe's kind of ability to sense things from the past?
Yeah, that was something I decided to just play around with in the first book, and I got really good reader feedback. So I have had fun doing more with that. I have spent a lot of time at historic places, and one of the good examples, I grew up in Maryland, and I spent a lot of time tromping around battlefields, Civil War battlefields. I've written quite a bit about the Civil War in Maryland.
You're, you're still muted, aren't you?
I'm sorry? Oh, you can hear me?
Yes.
Oh, we're
We
good.
can hear you.
Okay. And when you spend time on places like that, it's not uncommon to have some kind of something that you feel, not seeing a ghost. And I actually have looked into this a little bit. It's quite intriguing. There are scientific theories about, I can't go into them now, I can't quote anything, but about what might happen at place where there are very strong events like a Civil War battlefield, and what might linger there. And in addition to my own hours wandering battlefields as I was writing, I was a Civil War reenactor for years, so I camped on battlefields, and a lot of people have some story to tell. So that's the kind of thing that I wanted to just sort of explore a little bit for Chloe. I've had moments of the kind of thing that she has, but in a much milder form. She definitely has a stronger capability than I does, and it actually grows as the series goes on.
I was wondering about that. Yeah. Now, I know we originally said about half an hour, and we're in danger of going over that. Although if you have more time, we'd love to chat. Does anyone else have a question or two for Kathleen?
I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say this book was took a little personal note for me. My family name was Betts, Betts.
Oh,
And so I am a Betts, and I'm from Massachusetts, the coast of Massachusetts, where we have lighthouses, and I had relatives who were lighthouse keepers. And I had never heard of this particular Betts. So I immediately purchased your book and sent it off to my genealogically inclined first cousin, who was a Betts also. And she has started some research into who this Betts might be, if it's related to us or not. But it was just like
fun.
It was a whole personal connection that was just sort of, it made the book even more enjoyable for me. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad you shared that. In a case like that, I had to think hard about, did I want to fictionalize Emily Betts? She was a real person, and on a certain level, it takes some hubris to think that you can write someone as a character. But her story was so phenomenal. I felt very compelled to share it within the novel. And anyway, I'm so glad that resonated for you.
It did. It was fun.
I think there's another question from someone who might be muted.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I just wanted to know if there really was a murder committed on Rock Island. You know, we were there one day, but we didn't hear anything about any murders that had been committed. So was that really a true story?
That is a true legend. And there's a lot of different theories. The whole story of the gold coins, that is supposedly true. And I talked with the man who was one of the former some of you may know these people. When I started the book, I was working with Kirby Foss, who was the park manager at the time, and then he was taken over by Ranger Randy, as he's called his position when he retired. And that's where I got these stories from, different theories about what happened to him and what happened to the coins, and who knows about all of those things. But they are, I think it's established that there was the murder on the island.
Okay.
Nobody's quite sure what happened.
Interesting. Yeah.
We had very low water a few years ago, not just lately, but that point of land was almost completely connected. And when the ferry was overcrowded, people did go that way quite often. And there was one summer when a kid jumped over that opening, and I don't know if he drowned or if he almost drowned, but that is a very obvious connection point there. But right now the water is so high that it would be impossible. But
yeah,
I know a number of years ago that route was used by quite a few people.
I've heard the tales from people who've done it. I certainly have not tried it and have no intention to. And what I'm told, when you stand there on the point, it looks like a pretty easy walk from this point to that point with just some narrow water in between. But the shoal, I'm told, doesn't go where you think it's going to go, and the current gets pretty fast, pretty strong. Yeah, it's a dangerous spot.
Wow.
Well, this is a silly question, but did you become a member of the Bidders Club
I'm sorry. Oh yes, I
at
did.
Nelson's?
How could I not become a member of the Bidders Club? I did. I have my little card with my thumbprint on it. Yes.
There you go.
Any other members? I've done it.
Oh
I'm a
yeah.
member.
Really?
I am experiential as a writer, and to
That's
whatever
right.
extent that I can, if I can try it, I will. I have limitations, but I
It was fun.
try to do everything that Chloe does in the books.
Very good.
Delightful.
Bill fell asleep.
So with all the
Another-
research and experiencing you do for a book, about how long does it take you on average to write a book?
In general, for the first 10 Chloe books, I did one a year. And so I'm planning one, and I'm writing one, and I'm promoting whatever the last one came.
Oh my God.
But I often do other books simultaneously. I did a lot of children's books over the last decade. I wrote the nonfiction book that you held up at the beginning. That year I did 3 books. I did a children's book for American Girl, a Chloe book, and a Settler's Year for the Historical Society Press. So that was a busy year. But I've lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, what was the original question?
Oh, just on average, how long it takes?
Oh, how long it takes, yes. So yeah, I start researching in advance, and then I count on about a year to do a Chloe book if all goes well. And then it takes another, depending on the publisher. The publisher I work with for the first 10, it usually took them about 10 months to get it into print after I turned it in. So it's a slow process.
Yeah.
I will just mention for book 11, we don't have a pub date yet. I have a new publisher, and we had a very good conversation, and things are still rather chaotic in the publishing industry, like everywhere else. And she's publishing books, but the printers are not always able to deliver when they think they're going to be delivered. So that's why I haven't set a pub date for this one, even though it's I hope no more than 6 months out from now. But I will announce in my newsletter and things as soon as I have specific information. And because there has been a longer wait, I have been trying to sort of, I often don't talk about a book very much until it's about to come out, and I'm reversing that a little bit. So I'm going to be sharing more behind the scenes peeks in the weeks and months to come, since it's been a longer wait.
Fun. Anne, you've got a question?
Not a question, just a
A comment.
comment, something I really appreciated about this book. And this is the first Chloe book I've read, so I'm looking forward to reading more. But when I was just reading along and then you introduced us to the archaeologists on the island, and I thought how delightful that it was a female. And,
Oh,
I just appreciated all your strong women characters. And,
thank you.
it's not necessarily that I'm looking for that or championing that cause, but it was just kind of refreshing. Like, I think most traditional fiction, I would have just expected it to be a male archaeologist. And it was just, I don't know, it just kind of caught me in a delightful way that she was female. So thank you for adding that.
Thank you. I think you'll find in a lot of the books, I tend, especially in the historical plot lines, most of them are about very strong women. I just have so much admiration for the women in our time or in the past who are leading the way, who push their way into male-dominated fields successfully. I shouldn't say push, but persevere, whatever. I meant no disrespect by that comment. But I do like to celebrate women who do those things. And I've written a lot of books for little girls, and so I'm very cognizant of providing role models that help inspire young readers. I have teen readers, and I want them to see lots of strong characters, male and female. I mean, I'm quite fond of Rocky. He's a really good guy, and he's a complex character like all the rest of us, human being, and especially at the beginning of the series, he has some things to learn, like all of us. But it's really my pleasure. He's a good man and a good cop, and it's my pleasure to write a character like that. I think actually, from what I get from some readers, male, I think some people are actually more fond of Relke than they are of, some women are more fond of Relke than they are of Chloe. I don't know if that's true of any. There's a little Relke fan club out there.
How about our group here? Any favorite characters?
Chloe.
Oh, thank you.
I like Chloe a lot. She was a nice, strong woman, and I'm married to a strong woman, so this is very, very useful.
Yeah.
Good. So good for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I really love this thing, but I've been out there, but I kept waiting for you to go to the cemetery, and you did that. I mean, it was fun to see the different areas that you were at.
There's so much there.
Were there many campers there when you were there?
When we were there as docents,
Yes.
we always went up the very first week. That just was the that got started. So we would get there on Friday of Memorial Day weekend, and get dropped on the ground, and there were often people at the lighthouse even as we arrived with our boxes of food and things. And the weekend, if the weather was good, was crazy busy. But one of the things that I loved about that time is that then the week often was very quiet because people were still in school, and once the holiday was past, it was pretty quiet. So it was a nice time to be there. It was a mixture of both really busy excitement and time to just kind of settle in, parlor and read a book.
Or write a book.
Write a book, yes, or write a book. I have, if you visit my website, I have a page for every book in the Chloe series, and there are links to lots of blog posts and things. I think there's a picture of me working, at least one of me working on a book there at the lighthouse.
Yeah, you've got quite a bit on there. I usually do a wrap-up email, and I'm gonna include a link to that because there's quite a bit on there, and I did see the pictures of you and your husband at the lighthouse. Looks like you really, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I learned so much cool stuff, and I'm eager to share. I can't put it all in the book, or it would be a god-awful book. So I try to I've learned that a lot of people who like history and like the Chloe books, enjoy seeing kind of behind the scenes and how did I make this decision and what's the background for this particular element in this story. So hopefully between the website and the blog that it links to, if you are curious, you can find more.
I read the part about the payphones because it's
Oh.
interesting.
It's funny. I mean, all of us, you're probably, I don't know, I won't even guess, but I say you look actually young, but some of the, when the books started coming out, I'm writing from memory, of course. And some of my younger readers, I was shocked at the beginning with some of the questions I got, because they didn't know these things. She said, I didn't understand you had her twirling the phone cord around her finger in one of the books. And she was, I almost thought she was joking, but she truly wasn't. She was totally perplexed. What, I don't get it. What does that mean? And those things have been kind of fun to see. And there've been more and more of them as another decade.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You can tell who I'm looking at. I keep doing
That's
that.
okay. I don't know how much you studied the different kinds of fish nets and that were made throughout the history of that, but there is a picture on your website related to this book of a fish net that had some silver cylindrical objects in it. Do you remember that picture on your website? And they were not real big.
I think they were either floats or weights, probably.
Okay. And how long? Because I found an object like that maybe a few weeks before I started reading this book. I live near Moonlight Bay, over on the Lake Michigan side, and I didn't know what it was. And I was on another neighbor's property because we have a lot of part-time seasonal people, so they weren't there, but a nice path down to the water. So I thought, gee, I wonder what this is. And I just carefully put it back by the tree. And then I saw the picture on your book and I wondered how long ago those things were used. Is there still net fishing? I don't even know.
Well, I'm not an expert, but I can tell you what I know. There is still gill net fishing. It has really, really, really dwindled. And right now, unless something has changed that I'm not aware of, there's only one person on the island who fishes most of the time, and that's KK Fisk. He has a restaurant and he
Yes, I ate there.
Brings his catch home.
It's really good.
This was a very new world for me. So some of you may also know, does anyone know Jake Ellison? He's anyway, he was a long time resident and commercial fisherman, long retired when I met him. But he was kind enough to invite me to his house because I had some questions and someone connected us. And I started asking my questions very politely. I try to be so gracious and respectful. And about 3 questions in, he looks at me and he goes, "You really don't know a thing about this, do you?" So I'm no expert, but I'm grateful to have the help of people in the business who were willing to help me out with that.
Jane, I think if you go to Hickey Brothers,
Yeah, sure.
you can actually see them mending their nets. They do put the gill nets out, and they do work on their nets throughout the winter.
Oh, okay.
And
So
they're
maybe
very
that's where it came
gracious.
from.
You could probably ask them your question and watch them repairing their nets, but they do still put out gill nets at certain times of the year.
Came up from Hickey Brothers, huh?
They will take you out with them if you go out at an ungodly hour. And once you're out for 3 hours. So if you get sick, you're on your own.
Wow.
When I was a child,
all right,
my father would.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
When I was a child, my father would plan these special excursions for us. And one of them was to go out on the LeClaire fishing boat at 3 a.m. or whatever hour we went. And I think I was this was in the early 50s. Yes. And we went out for the day with them fishing. And of course, they had a setup right down the beach from us. So we went there almost every day. My brother one year packed fish for them. So we learned quite a bit about that. Now I understand why my father planned all these special excursions for us. One was to the sanitation department. Another was on the fishing boat. I mean,
Wow.
he
That's
took
quite
us
the-
everywhere. Very interesting though.
Yeah.
And I reacquainted with the young man that was on the boat. He was a 16-year-old and I probably was about 12. And about 2 years ago, we started chatting and spending a little time together talking about those old days. And I remember when I was still a fairly young girl in the 50s, some of the fishermen coming to see my father, who was a judge, when they were having all the trouble with the DNR,
Yeah.
you know, so that was part of our whole life story too,
Wow.
because they could hardly fish because they always had illegal fish. There was always something illegal getting caught in the nets, and that was an ongoing, and still is today, I'm sure, for the few
Yeah,
people that stayed
and that was
in.
something I knew absolutely nothing about. That's what I love. One of the things I love about writing these books. I loved Rock Island and Washington Island, but I had no idea of all of this until I started, you know, until I decided to do a book and really dig into the history. And some of it was heartbreaking, you know, the struggles of, yeah.
Oh, people went to jail. There
Yeah.
was, I mean, I can tell you incidents that were unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just from, you know, hearing them at home. Yeah. Someone should do a book on that whole thing, or maybe they have, I don't know. But that would be interesting because I think
it would. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people almost died and went to jail and different things that you would never ever expect. Right.
Well, Kathleen, I'm sure you learn a lot. As you said, things you've known nothing about, and you learn a lot. And thank you for educating us on some of these things as well. We appreciate so much that you've joined us tonight. Does anyone have any final comments or anything they want to say?
I just want to say thank you so much, not just for having me, but I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. And if I didn't have lovely readers on the other side, I wouldn't get to do what I do. So I'm truly grateful. And I'm so glad that you had a book discussion and that the book was chosen. Thank you.
Thanks
very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
everyone.
It was delightful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My
We'll read more.
Yes, now you can read all
more of them.
And one of these days, I'll be back up doing a live event at one of the lovely independent bookstores in your area. So I look forward to, hope to see you again sometime.
Great.
Hopefully we can get back to that soon. I'm sure this year has changed how you do things a lot. So
yes, for all of us though, for all of us.
Hopefully it's giving you a lot of writing time, and you know, we'll have some great books to look forward to.
Great. Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
If anybody wants to stay and talk about the next month or two, you're welcome to do that. There. Well,
Just
thanks,
remind
everybody.
me about the next book.
The next book is The Giver of Stars, Jojo Moyes, the pack horse librarians. And I put a note on there, and this is completely optional, but I know we have some super fast readers. So for any of you that have time and can get the book, there's also another one that was published around the same time, also about the pack horse librarians, the Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. There's some controversy about, you know, them being written about the same time, but who knows, that sometimes happens. Movies of similar things are released around the same time. Things just happen. So, but I've also been told they're good companion reads to both read both of them and kind of
So
compare.
what was that second one?
The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek.
Thank you.
So again, not required to read both. Some of us aren't as fast readers.
I
So
read
most of
that
most
book. It was wonderful.
Which one? Oh, I think I lost her. and most of our discussion will be The Giver of Stars. That's the main book, but it would be nice to spend a little time just comparing for those of us that do read both.
Okay.
Any thoughts that you didn't want to share with the author here about the book we read for this month?
I have a trivia question for the read for all of us who read it.
All right.
Ready? What's the oldest building in Door County?
Oh,
Must be the lighthouse.
Down Rock, yeah, the Rock Island.
You said the lighthouse?
No, there
No,
was
it's
the
related.
village. Oh.
It's related to the lighthouse.
Yeah,
Oh, the outhouse.
The outhouse.
yeah.
I thought that was so funny.
And that outhouse
First
is
things
full of
first.
snakes. It's full of snakes.
Oh,
This year was a bad year for snakes in general on the beach and everywhere.
oh yeah.
Yeah, no, it was bad.
I think with the high water table, they were forced out of their normal hiding places.
Maybe.
I've never seen so many.
And mice. Bad year for mice too.
That's true too.
Oh,
Yeah, we've had a lot of
Yes,
mice.
I understand that. I didn't have any, but visiting. But we actually had a snake in the cottage, and one day I was over at Horseshoe Bay, and one had gotten in there.
Ooh.
Tracy, what was the book that you held up at the very beginning? I couldn't see the title and.
Yes, I know there's a bit of a glare, so sometimes it's
Yeah.
hard, but this is here at the
Settlers'
Mandel
Year.
Library, A Settler's Year. And it's interesting. They had a professional photographer come a few times. So it's all at Old World, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And Kathleen wrote the text to go with it, but some amazing photography in here too, where they've kind of reenacted some things and taken pictures of it. So it's worth looking through. It's very nicely done.
All right, very
So,
good.
anyway, it's always hard to get it on the screen.
Yeah, got it. Got it.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So would you read more? Would you read more of her books?
I might, yeah.
Try another one. Might try another one.
They read
I wonder
very
if
fast.
I wonder if you have
So
to
that's
read,
the best part.
if it's helpful to read them in order.
Well,
Maybe
yeah.
not.
You
Because of,
probably
well,
should.
Because of the
Actually,
boyfriend.
The development.
Some spoiler
Right,
alerts
she's
with the
developing
relationship.
the character.
What I'm interested in, Tracy, is to find out if the policeman and Chloe get together. I'm more interested
Uh-huh.
if
You
they
want
have
the
to actually
romance?
develop a relationship.
Uh-huh.
As Todd is interested in the romance, I'm sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm a romantic. I like that part. Want to find out, okay, are they going to get together? Or is it just going to be another one of these things where they go back and forth and play with one another and play mind games, that sort of thing. So,
I've only read the one, but my prediction would be that it doesn't happen very fast.
right. No. It could be
The
many,
slow dance.
right.
Especially if she's going off on all these trips,
Well,
Really?
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, what fun to learn about all these locations while we read the books.
That's right. Yeah. It's fun way to do that.
So Tracy, I wanted to ask a question about, are there books on the history of Washington Island? Is there anything that is particular?
On Washington Island? Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked, although I didn't grab any Washington Island, but we do have Rock Island, and this is the.
Oh, okay. Oh,
This is a
Thordarson.
good one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Sue's got
Yeah.
Keepers of the
And then
Light.
Sue's got Keeper of
Yeah.
the Light.
Oh, and okay. Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
There's another-
The interesting thing is when I read this book, all I thought about was, I know nothing about Washington Island,
Mhm,
basically.
mhm.
We've been to Rock Island, we've been to Washington Island and so on, but I know nothing about any of the people that were there. Yeah.
Right. And there's one, I believe it's called The Islands of Door County,
Okay.
which would have both. And Raymond McDonald wrote 4 Islands, A History of Detroit, Rock, St. Martin's, and Washington Islands.
Oh, very good. Okay.
That might be an interesting one too.
Yeah. Very
And-
good. Thank you.
There was one she mentions in her website somewhere. There's a book she mentions. It's about fishing, the Door County fishing.
Right,
I don't remember the name of it.
right.
But that would have some stories too.
Well, I went to her website and I saw that one, but I didn't know, more about, the various villages that were there and so on and so forth and the people that were there. And I did read something about the Black people, Black individuals being up there for a very short period of time, but they were there. And so it was just kind of interesting.
During what years was that? Do you remember, Todd? The
No,
African
not
American-
exactly. Yeah,
Oh.
Civil War time.
yeah,
That's what I'm wondering, whether they came
Yeah,
north.
Underground Railroad.
yeah.
thing.
It was during the Underground Railroad.
Real-
sometime.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
and
And where did,
Anne would know maybe because she knew about Tom Davis in the book, right?
Right, yeah.
I read the book, but I'm not a date person. I can't remember the dates that it was. I have it in my mind that it was late 18, like
Yeah.
Oh, that
70s,
makes-
80s, but
That
That's
makes
what I thought.
sense.
Yeah, but I was
That makes
just,
sense, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
so,
Interesting.
yeah. So, good.
Anybody gonna go sign up to be a docent?
Well, now there's a waiting list. In
Well-
the early years, they were begging people to come out there.
Yeah,
They
yeah, but
didn't
see,
have
now
enough.
there's a lot of people that want to do that and we'll never get picked. I mean,
Right.
Would.
I have no historical background. I read history, but I don't know anything about any of this, so.
You
Do
look
you
like a-
know Tim Sweet at all? Tim Sweet is in charge of that.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
I think if you plead with him and tell him you live up here, you might have an edge.
Chance.
We might get a little, we might move to number 10 instead of number 100 or something like that.
Well, doesn't it sound like a lot of work? Like we're gonna have to like read and like learn stuff to tell people. I mean, it's work, isn't it?
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
It
Yeah.
is, but I think that they have notes there that you can kind of read
Okay.
up
Oh.
on.
Okay.
See,
all
we're
right.
still learning about Door County. How can we do anything else?
What better way to learn than to be immersed in it?
That's
true.
right.
That's right.
And we're trying that. My class is finally over with. So
I
that's
mean, all
what
those
I'm
steps.
doing. Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
good.
Well, any last thoughts on this book or on Kathleen?
Well, she was delightful.
She was very delightful.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
agree.
she was
Yeah,
delightful.
She was, she could have spent the next 2 hours with us if she
Right.
wanted. So,
Yeah,
That was very good.
Yeah, no, that was
So
very
thank you,
sweet.
Tracy.
Yeah,
That was
thanks,
good.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice idea. Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad she was able to join us. And yeah, at first she said, "Oh, I could probably do half an hour," and I was like, "Okay." But I'm glad she was willing to stay longer.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah.
Where does she live, Tracy?
Oh, now you're quizzing me. It's in Wisconsin.
I think she lives in Madison. Doesn't she live over
Does
by
she?
in Madison? Yeah, somewhere over in there.
Oh, Middleton.
I
Middleton.
think
Yeah.
Middleton.
Middleton.
So
Where is Middleton in compared to Madison?
It's just west of
It's-
Madison.
it's part of the,
It's cheap
it's part of
jowl.
the suburbia of Madison. I mean,
Madison, yeah.
There's
My
there's
son
no-
just,
there's no separation between Madison and Middleton
Right.
now. Yeah.
my
So,
son lives real close to there now.
yeah,
And I should ask too, who's been to Old World, Wisconsin?
we have.
Yeah.
Just a summer ago.
Yeah. We watched them make beer. That was really fun.
And we had,
Yeah.
I think we had some, it was
Right.
fun. It was a
It was
very,
very.
we had a beautiful
interesting.
day. It was a beautiful day to walk around and see the different
Right.
sites that they have brought in from different places. It's quite well done.
Yes, and we could mingle. We didn't have to wear a
Mhm.
mask and we didn't have to social distance.
That sounds heavenly right now. And Jane, you've got family from in that area, so I'm not surprised that you've been there, right?
Which, me?
Yeah,
You,
No, I don't have family there.
Didn't you in that area?
In Old World,
Maybe.
Wisconsin?
Not at there, but no. Just anyway, you've been there.
I've been there. I was just thinking, it's when our kids were little, and mostly what they really were interested in was how many cats they could find. We went from homestead to homestead looking and counting cats,
Yeah.
playing with every single cat. Yes.
typical.
We
Because
couldn't
there aren't
stay
any cats where you live.
including our own.
I'm sorry, it strikes me as funny. One of those things you set up, this is going to be educational, it's going to be great. Let's count the cats.
Totally get it. That would be my son. That would be my son. Any vacation we've had, he finds some cats to bond with.
Oh, it's funny.
Well, thank you. I have to go. But thank you very much. Good to see everybody.
Bye,
Thanks
Sue.
for being
Thanks,
here.
Sue.
Bye-bye.
Thanks
Bye,
for the
Sue.
good question.
Sharing your
Oh,
comments.
sure. Thank you.
All right. See you all next month, if not before.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Tracy, very much for getting it
thank
on.
you.
Tracy.
Thank
Thanks
you.
Bye,
Thanks for coming.
everybody.
Very nice. Very nice.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.